Vaera portion. This week's prepare to be amazed. We are on the portion of the wrath and fury of the divine towards the Egyptian nation. And therefore we are going to discover more about the powerful forces of divinity. We are going to see miracles happen. We are going to witness unnatural events taking place one after the other. This week God is about to display His great powers and wonders in the form of the 7 plagues that were cast upon the Egyptian nation, the forces of impurity. I guess we can say that in this portion we see God as we have never seen Him before. It's very different than the loving, caring, graceful God that was seen to the patriarchs, to our forefathers in the book of Genesis. This is a kind of different side of the same thing. The revengeful God, the fury God, the angry God, but this is the same one. And this is a beautiful way of understanding or dive more into those extreme forces that our God possesses, that Baruch HaKadosh, Baruch Hu possesses. So making judgment upon Egypt, while at the same time He is also giving us a huge lesson about who He is and what He is capable of doing. So in this portion, God is giving us a performance that is so profound, so intense, and so extreme that we would have to start questioning the entire paradigm of our reality and of the place that we live in, of our beliefs. Those events that are about to take place or that we will encounter will make us consider the fact that everything is indeed possible. Because this week the impossible happens. And more than that, this week it seems as if the impossible happens so frequently that the impossible actually becomes the inevitable, and that the incredible and the unnatural is actually become something that is sort of a natural state for us to be in. Now this week, the forces of impurity signified by the Egyptian nation are suffering badly. And there is for the first time an actual differentiation between the forces of good versus the forces of evil. Because if you remember in last portion, Pharaoh was initiated, prepared, and even executed some sort of a spiritual warfare. He wanted to destroy the forces of holiness, the forces of purity, or either to destroy them or to shift them into becoming forces of impurity. Now, for each time that the Egyptian nation suffered a strike here, we understand that God had completely other plans from Paro, and that the Israeli nation, the forces of purity, the forces of holiness, were actually prospering and flourishing under those harsh circumstances that cast upon the Egyptian nation the forces of impurity. Now there are many people, believers, spiritual seekers, that will follow this week's story of the Torah in some sense of fear, we can say. Many even maybe find themselves dreading from what is about to become because of the intensity of the strikes and the amount of breathtaking events that are here in display. However, in our journey, or in our reality, as we learned, there are multiple ways to understand the scriptures. There are multiple ways to look at the biblical story and multiple vantage points we can look through. There are multiple ways in which we can enlighten our conscience awareness, our spiritual conscience awareness. And because of that, we must remember, and this is the fundamental thing we must remember in this portion, is that inside us we have Israel just as we have Egypt, and that it depends on how you'll treat or discover those forces inside you will help you to cope with the things that will come into your life as circumstances, whether harsh or not. You either can watch them or observe them as the strikes that Egypt receives, or you can see them as opportunities that actually make you flourish and prosper as the Israeli nation in the land of Goshen. So, under whatever terrifying and horrific unnatural circumstances happening to Egypt, Israel is kept safe by the divine. Under whatever scenery that is cast upon the Egyptian nation, the divine is keeping Israel unharmed. In this portion, Vaera portion, God is making his tremendous powers to become alive, to be revealed, to be seen. And he's doing so by discovering to Moshe, to Israel, and also to the Egyptians, his true name, the name of the 4 letters. If you remember, last week we saw the names were concealed or hidden, but this portion opens up with the revealing of God's true name, or another name of God, a name that we have not encountered yet, the patriarchs have not encountered yet. The patriarchs knew God, as God said to Moshe, only by the name of El Shaddai, which represents a more limited manifestation of his abilities, of his being, while God's infinite enigmatic essence with its unnatural abilities that are beyond nature, is presented with the name of the 4 letters. That it wasn't revealed to Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and it is now revealed to Moshe. But what makes this name different? What makes this name so powerful in comparison to the name that the patriarchs knew God in? Because this name holds inside it the entire tree of life in union, which we will explain this in a second. The simple meaning of this name correlates with the idea that God himself is a sort of being, that he is what was, what is, and what is about to become, that he is present, future, and past all together, no beginning, no end. And because this name holds within it the entire union of the tree of life, it has such enormous powers that enables all the 10 attributes to be activated as once, as we will see. Now let's look at this name. Let's look at the letters and of what they represent. So we know that we have in the 10 counts of in the tree of life, we have, but those 10 counts also in a way divided, they're all together, but still divided into different phases. There is the father, which is Chochmah, the mother, Binah, Zeir, Anpin. Zeir, it's tiny, Anpin is face, it's like the little face. This is the small child that is, with it he has the Chesed, Gvura, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, V'Yesod, and we have the Malchut, the Nukba. So those different faces are in a way built this tree of life in a certain form of 4. So now let's do this. Let's look at the 4 letters name and understand what we are talking about. So the letter Yud signifies the Chochmah, the second count, the attribute of wisdom, which is the beginning of reality not in its practical form, but more of in the reality of the divine aspect. This letter Yud is the smallest of all letters in the Hebrew alphabet. In a way, it has no form of itself. It represents the supernatural and symbolizes the spiritual forces that are formless and is extremely powerful. It signifies things that are beyond the physical dimensions of time or matter. It is the root of everything, because we know that every Hebrew letter consists in it the letter Yud. The letter Yud is actually spreading and forming the actual letter. So every Hebrew letter starts with the Yud. So this is the root for everything. Its numerical value is also 10, which, as we know, is the 10 count attributes. The reality consists of the 10 spheres, as we obviously know. Now, in light of the above, there is Gam Kutso Shel Yud, the edge of the Yud, which is a little tag that is above the Yud in the scriptures. And this smallest part of the letter, that is separate from the letter but is coming with the letter, signifies the attribute of Keter, the first count, the crown, that is the highest count of all. Now the letter Hey signifies the Binah, the understanding, the attribute of understanding, which receives all the abundance of creation, spreads down from the crown and then further down to Chokhmah, and absorbs and attracts from above the abundance of blessings, life, fortune, good wealth, good health, all this abundance, and spreads it down to the lower attributes below her, the 7 that below her. This letter represents the Binah, which is also called the Great Mother. Great Mother because just like the mother breastfeeds her offsprings, the Binah breastfeeds the attributes below her, feeding them with abundance. Now, it is from her that we receive the abundance and blessings from the above, but her powers and forces are supreme and beyond what the 5 senses can actually acknowledge or comprehend. And so in order to actually receive the abundance in our reality, we also need to have the framework of the letter Vav, which is the next letter of this name. So we had the Kutzo Shel Yud, the Keter, we had the Yud, which is the Chokhmah, the father, we had the Hey, which is the Binah, the mother, and now we have the Vav, which is the Zeir Anpin. The letter Vav signifies Zeir Anpin, which is the tiny face, the face of the little child. It is like a tube that connects between the top to the bottom, between the upper to the lower. And therefore, in the Hebrew language, Vav also usually we use it in terms of connection in the language. Now, the numerical value of the letter Vav, as we said, Zeir Anpin, is from the 6 attributes of Chesed, Gvura, Tiferet, Netzachot, Ve'Yesod. Those are the 6, and this is also the numerical value of the letter Vav. And the lower letter, Hey, is Malchut, the kingship. So we have the Yud Chokhmah, Hey Binah, Vav Zeir Anpin, which is all 6 attributes together, and Hey Malchut. And there you go, you have the entire tree of life in these 4 letters represented by the faces within the tree of life. So the Malchut receives the abundance from the letter Vav as it symbolizes reality of the here and now, our needs and desires, our wishes. Now, our work in terms of this knowledge is to create union between the lower and upper letters of the name, of the divine name of the 4 letters. Now, if we have touched the attributes, the spheres, as they were representing themselves in the true, powerful, godly name, let us further explore the hidden or the extra force within those attributes. And I'm talking about the Da'at. And this is important for us to know about the Da'at because Moshe, our main figure, is actually a representer of the Da'at. Da'at is not considered as an attribute of its own. It is not considered in the 10 counts. But let's try to understand what it is. So we said that Zeir Anpin, the tiny face, the little child, is there is an external body of the Zeir Anpin that is included from those 6 spheres of Chesed, Gvura, Tiferet, Netzachot, Ve'Yesod. And he is called Tiferet because of the middle attribute that is also represented by Yaakov, as we learned in the book of Bereshit. And there is an internal or inner body of Tiferet, which is called the Da'at. That Da'at is kind of mind. That is why the Da'at is not considered as one of the 10 attributes, because as itself, it is the inner part of Tiferet attribute. Da'at is between Chokhmah and Binah, between wisdom and understanding, between the mother and the father. And those two are concealed in the upper realms, and so as Da'at, she is as well concealed in the upper realms. Da'at is the one that is pairing the parents, the great mother and the great father. The body needs to be fixed. The body, we talk about the 7 attributes, the lower 7 attributes. So the body needs to be fixed by the soul, by the high soul, by the 3, by the Keter Chokhmah and Binah, by the crown, wisdom and understanding. And the body needs to be fixed by the soul, and the inner part of Zeir Anpin, the Da'at, which is the Da'at, should be included in its external part, which is Tiferet. So by acknowledging the importance part of Da'at in Tiferet as an inner hidden section of it, we are able now to connect the internal to the external, and so that both will enter eventually to the attribute of Malchut as one. And it is by the doings of a person that Da'at is activated. Da'at main essence is leadership. And that is in a way the mind, as we said. That is the result of the repairs that were made by the Great Father and the Great Mother, the wisdom and understanding. The father and mother are the mochin, the brains. But it's more complicated than that, because Bina, as the mother, has the wisdom of heart, and Chokhmah, as the father, have the wisdom of logic. So Da'at, as the one that is pairing between those two, have inside it both. So each of them, the father or the mother, each of them takes his own mother with the heart and father with the logic. Both of them correlates and make fixing in the Zeir Anpin to correlate with the enlightenment of the essence needed when approaching two things in a sense of a leadership. So now when we talk about leadership, we are obviously talking about the leadership of the higher mind, a leadership that the Da'at is leading the heart and leading the body, is leading the soul, the upper soul leading the lower soul. As a godly soul is a soul that have the ability to lead the body, the heart. The inner part of Tiferet is hidden, concealed force that is responsible for the connection between Bina and Chokhmah, between wisdom and understanding, and for the connection also between the upper spheres, between the upper attributes and the lower attributes, between Keter, Chokhmah, Bina, and the lower Chesed, Gvura, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod Yesod, Malchut. All of them needs to come inside together to Malchut. Now the Da'at as itself is divided, as we said, to an influential male and accepting female, as we said before, heart and brain, the two mochin, the two brains. It needs to spread mercy to Zeir Anpin, to the little child, as the influential figure of the father, and at the same time it needs to spread judgment or awe to the attribute of Malchut, to the Nukba, into the kingship. Now that stands as a hidden and concealed trial, and its reality manifests itself within the clothing of the other attributes. It illuminates whatever inside to the outside, and it is doing so by the tools, by the other attributes, by the other midot, the counts, including their steps and their stages. So from this we can now understand better the importance of Moshe's role as a leader to the Israeli nation. He's not only a leader in the biblical sense of the story, he's not only there to eventually free the Israeli nation of their oppressors just as a figure in a story. Moshe is there as an actual force of leadership within ourselves that is there to lead us during the process of freeing ourselves from our own oppression, to take us out from Egypt, to lead us through the desert, and to give us the ability to find ourselves eventually in the promised land redeemed. So last week portion concluded with the epochal exchange between God and Moshe. As Moshe was saying to God, why have you done evil to those people? I came to you, you came to me, you said, go talk to the people, let my people go, and I did exactly what you told me to do. However, ever since I went to this Pharaoh guy and did whatever you told me to do, the work is harder, they are suffering badly. What is going on here? And then Hashem answers to Moshe, now you shall see what I will do to Pharaoh, for with a strong hand shall I let them go, and with a strong hand shall he drive them out of his land. So we can see here that God replies to Moshe not in a direct manner to his question. He's not saying to him, the children of Israel are suffering because of so and so. but rather he answers him in a future-oriented, moving forward, godly sense of dynamics, and revealing to him something that is much more greater than a simple answer to a much more complicated question. God, in his answer to Moshe, revealing his intentions. God is in answer to Moshe, revealing to Moshe the coming future. In the correspondence between God and Moshe, it is like Moshe and us, for that matter, are getting a glimpse into God's own mind and into a hidden and concealed knowledge that have yet to become an actual reality, but that is about to be revealed very soon. So we are getting here a glimpse into God's way of thinking, and in an even greater extent, into the realization that in fact whatever God is thinking is due to become. And that for us, in first glimpse, it looks like a trivial thing, but think of it for a moment. What God thinks, what is on God's mind is due to become. His thoughts create our reality. And the person who was chosen to become the one that this great secret of existence and creation will reveal to was Moshe, the one that held the da'at, the one that held within him both brains, the wisdom of heart and the wisdom of logic, the one that has the ability to lead. And we talked about before about the fact that this name was not revealed to the patriarchs, to Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Now, the differences between Moshe and the patriarchs is also explained by the Hasidic masters as driven from the different places they occupied within the total body of Israel. Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov are identified with the attributes of love, awe, and truth, chesed, gvura, v'tiferet, while Moshe, as we just learned, represents the da'at, which is between the attributes of chokhmah v'bina, of wisdom and understanding. Now, according to Hasidic masters, the patriarch represents the heart, while Moshe is the mind. There is a difference between mind and heart, as we know. But there is also a difference between how us as humans consider our existence in accordance to those two. Some of us are more emotional, heart-oriented, while others are more logical, mind-oriented. But the truth is we need them both to act in collaboration, to become healthy, to become spiritually healthy, and in conscious awareness. The mind-driven person constantly questions and challenges the reality and things that he sees, which is good, whereas the one with the heart accepts reality as it is, with all its contradictions, which is also something that is extremely important. Now, the healthy mind of the believer is a mind that includes both. And as we learned in Da'at, we have both. We have male and female. We have the both orientation. We have the female as the representative of the heart, while the male is the representative of the logic. While the mind categorizes reality into compatible and non-compatible suppositions, the heart can tolerate contradictions, outrage and devotion, judgment and acceptance, pain and pleasure. A heart that loves has room for them all simultaneously in his warm, let's say, embrace. So as the children of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, of the great forefathers, we have inherited from them the Jewish heart, this unbreakable bond with the divine, the bond of the heart that cannot be shaken. There is also there lies the significance of the word Vaera, and I made myself seen, with which God described his relationship with the patriarchs in the book of Genesis, and which give our Parsha its actual name. There are many ways in which a person may come to believe in a certain truth, but the most extreme way is sight. Sight is absolute. Sight is an essential force that we cannot we cannot say about someone that saw something. People can say to him, it didn't happen, or it can be not even logical, but the person who saw it, he thinks that it exists because he saw it, because sight is absolute. So the most powerful faith is the faith in the level of sight. The patriarchs, the heart of the Israel, saw God. Their faith was on the level of sight. And that is why their faith in Hashem was not shaking by even the most harsh contradictions they have seen. Just as a child inherits physical and psychological characteristics from his parents, we in a way inherited from our forefathers, from the patriarchs, from Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, this ability to always become this heart that can see the existence of Hashem, the existence of God. We inherited their every feature, experience, and achievement. All are stamped in our, let's say, spiritual genes. And because our father's faith in God was so absolute as sight, the potential for such faith exists within each and every one of us, no matter what our more external senses perceives. We can delve into our own selves for the inherent ability to see God every time, to sense His commitment to us even in the darkest of time. So remember this week, as Moshe, you are the mind of the people. Inside your mind, you have the heart, you have the logic, you have them both in correlation. You are connecting the father and mother, and you are connecting the three upper attributes to the lower seven, all in union, just like the name of God does. And remember all this, as the mind, as Moshe, we are even able to comprehend higher aspects of the truth that the patriarchs couldn't or didn't, or that as a representative of the hearts they didn't even question God's ways, because they couldn't take it, because they could take it all in simultaneously. So remember all this and choose to become or choose to be in this story, in this portion, the Israeli nation, the forces of purity. And I hope to see you next week as we continue and moving forward to the next plagues of the Egyptians people, and to what we will discover there in terms of mind, heart, body, and soul. Have a Shabbat Shalom.